I met Billy Joe, 73, the famous Terlingua trip. Incredible story. We're all up there, and we have that double-decker bus and everything. And this guy comes on and with 3 bags of dope and a soup spoon. Green, white, and red. We're putting on a big concert in Terlingua. You know where that is? It's on the border, you know. Wick Fowler and all these guys have the chili cook-off there, the famous Terlingua chili cook-off. A bunch of old guys went down there to drink beer and make chili. So these guys say, we're going to put on a big concert right down the road from there, and all these, they used to have about a couple thousand people, and they'll all come over. Okay, so this guy, Jim Marlin, goes around to everybody with these bags of Coke and the soup spoon. Waylon, Willie, Billy Joe, Jerry Jeff, Sleep at the Wheel, Delbert and Glenn, the Giesenslaw brothers, Sammy Smith, for this concert. Meanwhile, they hire Nicholas Ray, made Rebel Without a Cause, the inventor of film noir, legendary filmmaker. He's a strung-out drug addict by now. But these guys get him down there with 35 millimeter camera crews. And they're going to film this concert. We all get down there. 40 people show up. Now we're all down there for 2 or 3 days. We play, Willie plays, Delbert plays. I don't think Jerry Jeff or Billy Joe ever played except around a campfire. They filmed a bunch of stuff, but never mind. We all pack up and go because the next day is Jerry Jeff's release of Viva Terlingua, which had nothing to do with this. And this was such a we got paid $300, and I think we were the only one got paid. So meanwhile, this caravan goes up to Abbott, Texas, Willie's hometown, for Abbott Homecoming. Well, Abbott was not happy that this was happening, and it was a bust, etc. But anyway, that was the whole thing. So I meet Billy Joe, and he goes, we played. And I had an old fiddler with us because our other fiddler had gotten into a fight in Nashville, but the bottom line. So we picked up this old rancher who had played fiddle, and it was great. So we're doing Bob Wills music, and afterwards Billy Joe comes up and he says, I'm really disappointed. Now when Billy Joe's disappointed, you don't want to be in the same room. And I went, what? He said, I heard you were just like Bob Wills, and you don't break meter. You know what that means. That's why I like Bob Wills, because Billy Joe could never do the same thing. He could never keep meter, so he thought that was cool. Okay, I'm like Bob Wills, you know. From then on, I broke meter. And we became great friends. And he would jump up on stage and do, I'm in the Georgia on a fast train with us. And then I cut Way Down Texas Way. Freddie Fletcher, Willie's nephew, said, you ought to cut, he was playing drums for Billy Joe. You ought to cut Way Down Texas Way. It's a shuffle. You know. So we cut it, and it was a minor hit. We were good friends. And then, of course, it was Billy Joe, so you never knew. And like one day, he would just turn on you like a rattlesnake, you know, for no reason or for his reason. You know. But he was brilliant. He was just, he was the best. And
what's your earliest memories of Waylon?
The first record, 1968, is that right? I'm listening to this, because in Philadelphia, which had the radio, you know, there was, you know, and was it called Rock, Salt, and Nails, I think?
Utah Phillips wrote that.
Utah did?
Yeah.
I met him.
Really?
In 1969, 70 in Philly. Yeah, at a concert. But it was something like that, and it was on A&M Records. I remember that. That's when I first heard him. And I was like, wow. This is like country rock, kind of, you know, it was obvious. And then I bought the RCA records starting in 70. The ones Chet did, I still love them, you know. And met him in 73 or 4. A concert with Willie, Waylon, Sammy Smith, us. I'm not sure, remember, I hope I remember going to have breakfast, and he was so nice, and he said, you know, Bob Wills was revolutionary in his time. Oh, this guy knows. Yeah. So we played a lot of shows with the band, with Richie and the original band. The original band was Bobby Harold. He was, it was before the Outlaw thing, really. And Richie became a good friend. Richie Albright was half the reason Waylon, had that sound. Like we used to call him Richie Allfoot. Doom, doom, doom. And I finally realized, a few years ago, because I knew he was good friends with Cash and they were roommates, etc. All of a sudden I realized he was trying to strip his sound down like Cash had done. It was him on that guitar with the phase shifter, bass drums, and Mooney. And whether or not it was, whether or not he thought it out or not, it doesn't matter. It was obvious. It was, strip it down to Waylon and a beat. And that's what Cash had done.
Is that the earliest that you can think of, that beat? Because it seems like there's the Waylon beat that we think of, but where does that come from?
That was Richie Albright. And definitely, period. That was it, because we would, and then Mooney, just brilliant. It was so cool. And he just would let him play, so it was, we were huge. And again, back then, because Willie was our pal, and Waylon, we were all pals. But we went, Waylon's going to be the hit. The chicks go crazy. And here's Willie. He's too weird, too cool, way too esoteric. And it was so amazing to watch the ascension of Willie Nelson to one-word superstar, one-name superstar. It was hippies and rednecks, combining. Everybody had long hair because it was fine for rednecks to have long hair by 72, 3, 4. And everybody's either drinking, getting high, or doing psychedelics, depending on their preferences. But getting along, a very short period of time. But it was that one time when I saw music absolutely conquer hate. Yeah. So we came to Austin. We moved to Austin. We played there in February of '73 when our first record came out. And
was that at the Armadillo?
At the Armadillo, opening for Commander Cody.
What do you remember about your thoughts of that night?
We're in heaven. This is fucking amazing. Pot's $10 an ounce, and it's really great. There's hippie girls loving our country music, and then we could also, and see, we were the only long hair hippie band that could play the redneck dance joints. Because we had cut our hair and were wearing country western outfits, and we would play Johnny Bush, Ray Price, Bob Wills, Willie, and we were playing the redneck dance halls as well as the rock joints. So it was heaven for us, And we moved down there as fast as we could. Rented a house at the end of '73. Got back there in February of '74. But we had been playing all through '73, And it was just amazing. It was, like I said, one time I did a panel with the High Tech thing that hit Austin big time by 1990 or 89, 90, whatever it was. And they asked me to be on a panel with Michael Dell Computers, Steve Hicks, who wound up being, he's the guy who created Clear Channel. Another girl, and Matthew Knowles, that's Beyonce's father. So, okay, Ray, so why did all these musicians come to Austin, Ray? I said, well, there were a lot of gigs, rent was cheap and pot was cheap. Michael Dell goes. Anyway.
Facts are stubborn things.
Facts are stubborn things, but that was it. It was just heaven. I mean, rent was $300 a month. There was gigs all over. $300 for a nice place. I mean, $100 for a shitty place. It really was incredible. And then you had all this history, of the great old blues guys, Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipskin. They were all from the area, T-Bone Walker from, they'd all left because, again, Texas was a very racist place, you know. A lot of these folks left, went to California or elsewhere, Chicago, you know, whatever, just to get out of there. But they were Texans, you know. Johnny Guitar Watson, you know, he was from Houston, but they were in L.A., you know. That's where you go if you wanted to be treated right. But it was all there, and it was wonderful. And then we come, and they were like, oh my gosh, there's this weird young band, and they're playing Bob Wills music. And they were amazed, you know. And it was obvious, you know, that something was going on. We didn't consider ourselves a Bob Wills. We played hillbilly music, boogie woogie, western swing, and wrote our own songs or covered other people's songs. We did it all. We just felt roots. We felt we were roots American music. That's, you know, we did Cajun music, we did honky tonk music, Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, etc. But the Bob Wills thing was like a flashpoint. People were like, because there were no Western swing bands anymore. They were gone. I asked Johnny Gimble, where can we go see? He was still in Nashville doing sessions. Where can we go see a Western swing band? Well, go see the River Road Boys. Great Western swing players. We went to see them. They were playing the radio because that's what they were getting paid to do, you know. It's a country western dance hall. But Troy Passmore, this was one of the great guitar players, the two fiddle players, Bob White, and, you know, and they were amazed. You guys are doing what? You know, Take Me Back Tulsa was our first single, I think, or Driving Nails My Coffin, maybe. But anyway, yeah, it was wonderful. Like Floyd Tillman come out to see us, Al Dexter, Jerry Irby. These were all, you know, writers from the 40s and 50s, and they couldn't believe that there was this band called Asleep at the Wheel. And we played Liberty Hall, was a famous place in Houston. Springsteen, us, everybody played coming up, you know. And we played there. So, but that's what we were kind of like. You know, I had a friend of mine was my partner, business partner, Peter Schwartz. He was with played bass for Steve Riley, but his father was Tracy Schwartz in the New Lost City Ramblers. But anyway, you know, they were musicologists. They were, you know, Mike Seeger, him, and Tracy Schwartz, and the other guy, Cohen. And they had rediscovering these roots American folk artists, or country artists, like I say. And that's what we kind of consider ourselves, but we also were songwriters, you know, so we wrote our songs, but we wrote in those styles, you know. And that's what it was all about. It was so much fun and so idealistic. And also we had this huge band and didn't make any money, and then we had a hit record, and so we just toured and didn't make any money.
In this early, say 72, 74 period or whatever, when you first met Waylon, what did he think of what y'all were doing?
He loved us because, and we were friends, and he understood that the musicianship was A+. You know, this was the Sleep at the Wheel has always had the best musicianship there could be. When we went out to California, Joe Kerr and the Commander Cody guys used to say, the difference between us and them is after the gig, they go home and practice, you know, because we were, you know, and we had backed up, you know, we went out there before we had a record deal, we backed up Stoney Edwards. We were Stoney Edwards' band. You know, he was a black country singer on Capitol Records, had Hank and Lefty Raised My Country Soul, and She's My Rock, and I Ain't Gonna Throw Her Away Before George, and it's an incredible story. But we were the poor folks, they called us. We went out on the road with Stoney, and we'd show up at these package shows, and who's on it but Freddie Hart. Freddie Hart's Easy's Lovin' is #1. We're the Heartbeats. For a week, we were the Heartbeats, or 10 days, backing up Freddie Hart, then Connie Smith, and we're backing up Connie Smith, then Dave Dudley, we're backing up Dave Dudley. You know, that's where we made our bones, you know. We backed up the Country Cavaliers. I don't remember these, they were, you know, early Nashville. Anyway, backed up Dickie Lee, LaWanda Lindsay. You'd show up in these package shows, and if you were a band, they said, you're backing them up, you know. So we made our bones, and it was like, and we're playing there, and Willie shows up for a gig in Greenville, North Carolina or South Carolina, I can't remember which one. The guy hadn't paid us for 2 days, and I was 20 years old, you know. I said, Oh, I'm going to pay you tomorrow, boys. Oh, okay, Mr. Woody. So Willie shows up on our third shows, and he comes into our mobile home. We had a Winnebago with Stoney. Y'all been paid? I said, no, but he's going to pay us tomorrow. He said, okay, hold on. So me and B and Paul are hanging. I'll be right back. Willie goes off to get paid. 15 minutes later, he comes back and goes, come on, we're going back to Nashville. He ain't got the money. I said, well, he's going to pay us tomorrow. He never paid us. Never paid us. Didn't pay. And then he split out on Freddie, and this is a great story. So many years, the next year I'm at the DJ's convention, which was a big thing here in Nashville. Before Phantom, it was called the DJ's convention, and they had all the DJs and had big shows and everything. And I'm walking, and Joe managed Freddie Hart. They used to manage McFadden, Joe McFadden, and his dad had managed Buck. And I see Joe. I said, oh, Joe, remember that guy who screwed us? He said, oh, you want to hear something? I'm walking down the street. I see him. This is Joe talking. I see the guy. He owes Freddie $5,000 for the 4 shows. You know, somehow he'd only gotten half, whatever. He grabs the guy, takes him to a phone booth, shoves him in the phone booth, and says, you ain't getting out till I get my $5,000, man. But I don't have it. You make a phone call, asshole, you know. It was like, he said he finally got the money. I said, God, I wish you'd gotten ours. But those were the times, and that's how we made our bones, really. And the next thing we know, so we're playing in the Bay Area, and we're finished with all that, and Van Morrison hears us and books us on this. We were playing to Long Branch every Tuesday night, Sleep to Will, $1, and you get a free draft beer. And here's this country band, so he comes down, he says, I want you to open a show for me, this little club. So he comes down just so he can sing country songs. And he mentions us and Clover. Clover was John McPhee, Huey Lewis, John Chambodi, and they were our pals. And they asked him, who's some of the bands you like? He said, oh, I like Asleep at the Wheel and Clover. They're 2 great bands. All of a sudden we get a record deal on, Dan Burgoyne signs us to United Artists. And we're on our way, And that's how it went down. So when the album comes out, Willie has no idea that this band that backed up Freddie Hart and Stoney Edwards is Asleep at the Wheel, because we had to be called the Poor Folks, which was Stoney Edwards. Poor Folks Stick Together was his hit. So the record comes out in February of '73, and Willie hears about this band, Asleep at the Wheel, playing Bob Wills music, and he comes down to this club we're playing with Richie Albright, because Waylon and them had just played somewhere. And we smoke a joint and become good friends, and that was the beginning of our relationship, And he's been, I'm going to write a book when I get a minute called 6 Degrees of Willie, because, the meeting Willie has been everything in my life, personally, professionally, And I got to get it down because it's a pretty interesting story. But after that, like I say, Doug was there, and it was just great. Austin, 1973, 4, 5, 6 was a post-hippie cultural paradise. There were writers, filmmakers. A guy named Eagle Pinnell did these incredible. He was the first underground filmmaker there. Did the whole shooting match and Last Night at the Alamo. If you ever get a chance, they were Sonny Carl Davis, and Lou Perry were the stars. And Lou got murdered tragically about 15 years ago. But they were Austin actors, and Eagle was the first filmmaker. Toby Hooper was part of his. He's the guy who did Poltergeist and everything. And it was just nascent kind of film community. Doug Holloway was another one. We did a film called, I did the first soundtrack called Fast Money with those 2 guys and Samuel L. Red. And then I did the soundtrack with the Thunderbirds, the original Thunderbirds, us, and whoever was around. But there was all these creative people. And I likened it to Paris in the 30s when all those expats went over there, and Hemingway and all those people, because there were writers, filmmakers, all doing their thing, as we used to say, you know, all. And when Rick Linklater came years later and coined the word slackers, that's who we were. We were the originals.